Hello, LEGO fans, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Brick Hour Time Capsule. I am JJ, those known as Langster Builds on Instagram.
I am
Sorry, I'm
Cameron.
cutting off Cam.
I am Cameron, otherwise known as Cameron Studios.
And with us today for our next episode of Time Capsule is none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Eljay Johnsen.
Hey everyone, thank you guys again so much for having me. I'm really excited for today.
Yes, we are very excited to have you
Hmm.
back again. Obviously, this is part two of our Bionicle retrospective. If you are just joining this one for the first time and haven't seen part one, please go back and look at that. We have a link in the description. That episode specifically focuses on 2001 through 2003. Today, we are looking at 2004 through 2005, specifically the Metru Nui years. Kind of like, if you're going to compare this to Star
Hmm.
Wars, the prequels. That's kind of what this is kind of is
Oh,
layman's
okay.
terms. This is kind of the prequel era. Um, these 2 years were very interesting in my opinion. They were, I don't want to say a jump, but there was a lot more posability with the figures in essence. And
Hmm.
it's kind of where we start to see Bionicle, I feel, really hit a stride in terms of storytelling and how edgy they can get with that. But to kind of get us started with the overall vibe and the overall, I am say overview
Hmm.
of 2004 and 5, I will pitch to LJ and we'll let him roll right into that.
Alrighty. So, leaving off from last time, the end of the first Lego film Bionicle Mask of Light, the inhabitants of the island of Mata Nui, they discovered a long lost city of legends known as Metru Nui. So this story year, 2004, kicking off these prequel years. This starts with Turaga Vakama, one of the village elders, telling the stories of the City of Legends Metru Nui. And he's recanting all of these adventures of this Toa team from way back when, his Toa team. Because at the very end of the story year for 2003, we find out, oh snap, the Toa that we have been following are not the first Toa. So we flash back and we are in Metru Nui and we find
Hmm.
out that the Turaga all used to be the Toa Metru, a team of 6 elemental Toa that had to come together to save the day. And that's really where things kind of kick off with 2004.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to put
That sounds
that.
pretty good. For someone who's like not as familiar with like the lore and story of Bionicle, like it's very cool for me to like see how it all connects. And like pointing out something that JJ mentioned earlier, like I have a couple of these Bionicles surprisingly enough, but I think what really attached me is like the one I have here, which I'll show off later, is just the posability, the play features, and like quote unquote like I guess the customizability of it in a sense, just because like I remember doing so much with it, and it felt like an action figure without being an action figure, which was really cool. And I think this is where I remember Bionicle really hitting its stride in the sense of just playability and just the amount of pieces that go into it. So I'm excited to see how it grows even further within these 2 years and then going on more with the story as well.
There were a lot of fascinating changes to the way LEGO handled Bionicle and the sets starting in 2004. As we all know, the gray has now changed.
Mhm.
In
Hmm.
2001 through 2003, light gray and dark gray had a slightly greener tint to them. Now we are dark blue gray and light blue gray. So there's a slightly bluer hue, and that's how it is today. So that's one change. The set color schemes are a lot more desaturated. So instead of before, where it's a bright primary color and a bright secondary color, now it is a dark primary color, like a dark red or a dark green, and the secondary is just dark blue gray.
Hmm.
So it looks a lot more industrial. It looks a
Mhm.
lot less bright and vibrant. So it gives a more serious tone. The sets are
Hmm.
also taller now.
Yep.
The parts
Very.
almost completely reworked the character building system because almost none of the pieces from 2001 and 2003 carry over into 2004. It's
Wow.
almost brand new.
There's very little that does carry
That's
over.
pretty cool, honestly.
I would also say I think one of the things that I like a lot about LJ, to your point, the muted color tones and the more kind of like darker hues and whatnot. Like I loved the fact that like the island of Motunui is very bright. There's a lot of different colors on there. I mean, the map behind you perfectly shows that. The Toa in those environments reflect that. Metru Nui is not bright and bubbly. Like there is a lot of darker
Mhm.
areas to it. So the Toa's color schemes kind of matching that to me, I think was really, for me, it was really interesting growing up seeing that because you're like, oh man, like these guys are like, they're not like grimy, but it's like, they're not like the Power Rangers are like flashy in your face. Like these guys are like, they're a little more, they're much more serious and it reflected the serious tone of the story.
It
Yeah.
feels like more mature, honestly. Like as like Bionicle is growing up with the fans, it's kind of growing up with them too, which is kind of cool. Like I just random connections. Like I think of like Star Wars Rebels. The first couple seasons were kind of not childish, but for younger viewers, and like it kind of grew up with the fans as a went on. So I'm getting that sense with Bionicle now, and I looking at the sets that I have, I can see that compared to like the bright colors that you mentioned earlier, LJ.
Yeah, and it really does go along with the story. All of the advertising is significantly more serious. When they introduce the main villain force in the second half of the year, the advertising, the online animations, the commercials are very draconian.
Hmm.
Mm,
You have this robotic law enforcement force that is constantly watching the Matoran, the inhabitants of the city of Metru Nui. It's
mhm.
a police state, it's a surveillance state. It leans heavily. The advertising leans really, really heavily into like this Orwellian landscape, as opposed to this kind of uncontained tribal island that
Okay.
we'd been used to for the last 3 years. So it's a complete and total swap, very different vibe, but enjoyable nonetheless.
Oh
Mm.
yeah. I mean, I remember the commercials for the Vaki specifically being like Matoran are going missing. And
Yeah,
they
and
very much allude to like, yeah, they're abducting the Matoran. Like that's literally what's
wow.
happening here.
Yeah, which is it kind of happens, but yeah, no, and it's literally the tagline for the villains in the later half are surrender or run.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
It's
it's very
it's pretty
it's very
sweet.
serious. So
So let's jump into the sets right away, Cam. Let's go into big mode and start looking at our 2004 sets. And right off the bat, right in front of us, just as we had mentioned, as LJ had mentioned before, here is Toa Vakama himself, who I think is one of the more iconic sets to come out of the entire Bionicle theme as a whole.
this, if you've seen one Toa Metru, you generally have the idea for the rest of them. So before, you'd have the Toa Mata and the Toa Nuva, and they'd
Mhm.
be generally based on the same building system. They'd have the same torso, similar limbs, the same feet, and so on. But there were slight modifications so that there was a lot of visual identity.
Mhm.
The Toa Metru start a trend for the next few years known as clone sets. Not Star Wars, these are a
Mhm.
lot less expensive. Instead, the sets look basically identical outside of three main attributes: their color, their mask, and their tools. So in
Okay.
Vakama's case, he's dark red. He has the great Kanohi Huna, the mask of concealment, and he has a disc launcher. And the articulation has improved significantly. Now the main characters have knee articulation. We now have elbow articulation in a mainline canister set for the first time. They have posable hands, which I mean we'd had before, but we're keeping, which is wonderful. But
Mhm.
what's really cool about the Toa Metru is that they maintain a gear function.
Hmm.
There is
Mm.
a long time conversation about form versus function when it comes to Bionicle sets. So where you have a Toa Metru, which looks really posable, it's very action figurey, so it's got a lot of nice form to it, but it maintains that action from the original sets. So
Mhm.
you can turn a gear on the back and the arms will swing forward and back.
Which I think I like that. I like the. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously in later years the functions do get ditched. Spoiler alert.
Mhm.
But the fact that they were able to increase the size of the figure, increase the posability of the figure, without sacrificing that function, to me was a huge plus of these. Huge plus of these.
Mhm.
And I also think Vakama's disc launcher is probably one of the coolest tools that any Toa set ever got, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Just like it looks awesome, and it actually worked and fired pretty well.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
The small sets for this year, they all get disc launchers. Vakama gets this big heaping one, and it's awesome. The disc launchers are great. Kanoka discs are the new collectible. However, they are not quite
Mm,
as fleshed out as previous year's collectibles. So you're
mm.
not going to have a full series of every single type of disc, but you can get a handful of them in the 6 main designs, not looking like the one Vakama has here. This was exclusive to him.
Yep.
I just like I love like this color scheme, the style of this one. Like I can tell what you mean by the more mature tone, especially with like the colors. And I'm really curious to see what the other ones look like.
Yeah, we can scroll
And
down and see some more.
interesting, there's a SCCC one. Cool.
The that one is actually really funny because they did do an SDCC exclusive canister for Vakama. So the canister is the
Oh.
exact same, except it says it's exclusive to the convention and that it contains an exclusive Kanoka disc. And the Kanoka disc, which is the exact same part as the
Hmm.
discs used by the Mictoran in 2001, that disc has like the SDCC logo printed on it. It's not actually in the canister. So you would get the SDCC canister and it say includes exclusive disc and it isn't there. So you technically have two collectibles when it comes to that specifically.
That's funny.
That's funny.
All right.
Um,
Oh,
Nakama, I like the
Nakama.
fact that Nakama's mask kind of maintains the same vibe that Galley's did,
Yeah.
where it was the transparent. I think Galley's mask, the transparent blue, is so cool, and
Hmm.
I was kind of it's kind of bumming me out that her Nuva mask isn't that way, but they bring that trend back with Nakama, which I loved. And her the trans blue effect just looks very watery to me, which is why I think I love it so much.
I
Yeah,
love
no,
like the
it's really
stingrays here
nice.
too, honestly. I know they're probably not, they're like supposed to be like a weapon, obviously, but they look like stingrays, which is really cool to me.
Yeah, no, the oh gosh, I can't off the top of my head remember what the name of those are. It's like it's not aqua axes, it's not protopinions, it's hydroblades. That seemed obvious.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's actually a little unfortunate that this mask is actually the last mask that they continue this trend with. It's
Hmm.
Mm.
seen one more time in 2006, and after that character uses it, they don't continue with this trend of having the blue characters have that translucent mask effect.
Hmm.
Keeping on going here. Winua, love the tool that
Ooh.
yeah, the cutters were always like that. They always look like shovels to me.
Hmm.
I feel like that's definitely what they are. But that was one of my favorite ones. I had him growing up. I loved him growing up. Um,
That's a cool looking helmet. It
yeah,
reminds
that
me of
was
a scout trooper, actually.
I can see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's got the vibe a
Now,
little bit.
those pieces, the protopinions he has, I think they're pinions. I can't remember
Something
the
like
name of
that.
those exactly. Pitons,
Hmm.
protopytons, pitons. I'm really bad at pronouncing things that aren't just bionicle names. Um, they're actually like a flexible plastic,
Oh,
so
cool.
you can actually the one in the back looks like something you can actually do if you hook it onto something and then just swing the figure. It'll bend in a very similar fashion.
Nice.
Oh, Maddow. My boy Maddow.
Oh, they're wings. Okay, they're like swords, but for wings. Okay.
Yeah. No, this was always
Cool.
one of my favorites. All the tools do have a dual functionality, or at least most of them are supposed to. So
Hmm.
in his case, obviously, yeah, his swords become wings, and they'll Lego will use this piece again in the future. They recolor it into a bright red for Exoforce a
Hmm.
couple of years after this, and all of them have kind of sort of dual functionality, but it is a trend that they do kind of move away from after this wave.
Oh.
I don't know why. I always found Nuju was like, I don't want to say the most boring looking Toa Metru, but the characters that are predominantly almost all white just aren't as interesting to me.
They like blend in a sense.
I don't know why, but
Kind of like a default coloration, like usually like a
Yeah.
Gundam kit before it has been like decaled and
That's a good way to
painted.
put it.
Yeah, I understand that.
all right, keep on going. So now we get to some of the crazy Titan sets, which This is the year I feel when Bionicle, like with the Titan sets, they really start to just kind of go crazy with how elaborate and how intricate these things are. So Taraga Doom and oh God, I'm gonna is it Nivawak?
Nivok?
Nivok,
Nivok.
thank you. Taraga Doom, first of all, huge to the story. Um, the fact that he was basically impersonated the entire time is huge. And that much of an important character being included is a big deal. In this, like this, I mean, obviously we see it with 2003 with Takanuva and with Makuta, but we start getting now these larger Bionicle sets that start including either more desirable like one-off masks that are like crazy, like legendary, crazy
Hmm.
powerful masks, or incredibly important characters to the overall story. This is one of the first ones that really starts doing that in a larger scale.
And it's actually really interesting to see how still generally affordable these sets are. So like the canister sets, the Toa Metru are still they're about $8. The main villain sets for the year are about $9.
Mhm.
These large sets are all $20, except for I think the fourth one that's a little bit further down.
I think you're right.
I think
Nidiki's awesome.
that next one is going to be, I think, yeah, it's
Oh,
30.
JJ, this is the one I was telling you about. My brother had this when we were younger, and
Oh, you had Kreka.
all the pieces are just scattered within my collection now. I was never able to recreate him. I was debating actually trying to find him again the secondhand market. So we'll see if I come back to that.
And we can talk about the story significance of actually, Cam, if you want to go back up, we can talk about the
Yeah.
story significance of Kreka and Nidiki because this kind of becomes I believe this is our first introduction to the Dark Hunters, correct?
Yes, this is the
Yes.
first time that they make an appearance in the story because the world has now expanded in a way that isn't fully understood, not for another 4 more years.
Hmm.
But there's an organization of assassins and guns for hire known as
Hmm.
the Dark Hunters, and these two individuals are the first known members that we meet in the story. They've been hired to do something in Metru Nui, but we're not sure what yet.
Huh.
Yeah, these two are sweet. I I like the fact like Nidiki was always my favorite because the arms like the pincers look sick and like it was like it's like a big spider crab,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
his head also functioned as a disc launcher, just like the other
Yeah.
Vaki sets. Like that was a disc launcher, which is sweet.
Yeah, no, it was really, really cool. The legs, they can go forward and back, and his torso can, like if this is Nadiki, his torso can fold backward, his head
Hmm.
spins around, and he takes on this like kind of small defensive pose.
Oh, cool. I wonder if they have alternate pictures for these
They might have
ones.
a picture of it.
Hmm.
Nope, just one.
Maybe in the instructions.
Probably not. I would just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
All
don't
right.
think they actually showcase it very much,
It's
but
probably like
having
the
it in the
back of the
box is,
box or something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
I just remember liking this guy a lot just because like all the different weapons he had. Like he had the pincers here, he
Hmm.
had like clippers here, he had the disc launcher here, the Mr. Freeze tube that was in the Batcave set that JJ wants so badly still.
Very true. That wasn't that.
But there was so much in here, like looking at like the pieces I have left over, and then knowing that they build a set like this, like it's just so cool to me. Like it's like there's not a lot of big pieces in here. It's a bunch of small pieces that you put together to make this awesome character.
Greg is a funny one because he looks really cool, but the last time I like interacted with that model, it's very stiff and things aren't operating as smoothly as I
Hmm.
remember them.
Hmm.
And it was very eye-opening to me. It's like, wait, what the heck? Why is this doing this? It shouldn't be doing this. I don't remember it doing that. But as an actual figure, Kreka looks really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. And now we get to the Vaki, the robot police force. These were the big bads of this
Wow.
year. They do have a couple like reused parts in terms of their arms and the feet they have, but each of them had a really cool feature, from what I remember at least, of they could stand upright on two legs, or their heads could rotate backwards, their limbs would rotate around, and now they're walking on all fours, which
Interesting.
sick. Really cool way of doing that. And these also had gear functions too.
Yes, they function very similar to the Rakshi from 2003, but their main thing is they can look like this kind of spider-like crawling where they
Hmm.
use those large staff pieces as kind of forearms, or they can look bipedal and very similar to a Toa in stature. And what's
Hmm.
really cool about the Vaki is that they also had Kanoka discs, so their
Mhm.
heads function as disc launchers.
Awesome.
Like they already looked intimidating as it was, but the fact that their head actually had that dual feature, it to me is cool. Like
Hmm.
it's like again this, and this is really when Lego starts doing like projectiles
Yeah.
in most of the sets. Like a lot of them, this is when that trend begins with Bionicle. They start introducing a new projectile launcher practically almost every wave.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time they introduce specifically projectile launchers that are handheld.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
in the Vaki's case, they're obviously just a component of their head design.
Hmm.
However, when we get to the small sets for the year, the Matoran wave, then you'll see that these disc launchers are generally held, and that is a trend that kind of kind of doesn't reappear next year in 2005, but it comes back very heavily in 2006.
Yes, it does. Yeah, we
These are
get
just
to
so fun.
Yeah,
yeah, they are
story
cool.
wise, these are plain, pure, and simply robots. So the characters in the Bionicle universe are supposed to be biomechanical. It is a
Mm.
component of people's understanding of what Bionicle means. It means biological chronicle,
Hmm.
but these characters are purely robots. And they run strictly off of programming. They have no personality. There are no like individual motivations for these characters. They are very pure, plain and simply law enforcers. They do not have any sentience.
Hmm. Which made them even more scary in my opinion because it
Hmm.
was just they didn't have a soul. They just went around destroying stuff.
Yeah.
Totally Khan,
Wow.
huge character in terms of lore.
Very cool.
Likan is a renown set for a few reasons. First, of course, we have another Rahi, another creature, another item of wildlife for this world. In this case, it's the Kikanalo. And as you can see, Toa Likan is riding on the Kikanalo.
Hmm.
Never happens in the story. This is a
Oh.
completely fictional. Like Likan specifically never rides a Kikanalo in the story. Others do, but
Mm.
not him. Likan in the story is a Toa fire that led a large Toa team in Metru Nui. It
Hmm.
was a team of 11, and they were all brought from different places in the world to fight a massive threat called the Kanohi Dragon. So they managed to quell the threat, and one by one, the Toa Mangai, they start getting picked off
Hmm.
one by one by one. And 11 eventually ends up being just one because
Wow.
one of Lee Khan's teammates becomes Nidiki. So he is left to herald the next wave of Toa in that city, and that is his role. In this set, we get a lot of those new Toa Metro pieces in gold. This picture is a smidge misleading. It's not bright and vibrant like that. It's the gold, that kind of muted gold from Takanuva.
Yep.
Hmm. Okay.
He he is probably my favorite of this year's Toa builds. I think he looks very distinct.
Hmm.
His mask is awesome. Obviously, story-wise, there's implications with it later on down the
Right.
line. But this set was always just so cool. And Lee Khan is such an awesome character, especially in the movie, and the comics, so they go into that a lot with him. I always liked the implication of him as a character because, like, obviously Metru Nui, we get, oh, there was six other Toa characters before the Toa Nuva and the Toa, like,
Hmm.
before them. It almost felt very, like, Jedi Order. Like, no, there was a lot more than just six. Like, there was like Lee Khan's team was 11, and then they all got picked off, and one by one they disappeared, and he was the only one
Hmm.
left. And you're kind of just like, man, like it makes the world feel so much larger than it originally was, and it expands it to an extent where it's like there's been so many Toa over the years, and we're just seeing a fraction of them
Hmm.
right now.
Yeah.
for
The
sure.
world building really takes off after this point.
And I think we can keep going down. There was some random shooter discs. Here we go. Here are some of the little Matoran builds. So we have, well, that's not really a Matoran build, but um, yep, here they are.
Okay, I see
I
what you
love
mean.
these Matoran builds, by the way. I think they're like some of the better ones they've ever done.
I quite enjoy them. I really like the look of them. So these are just standard Matoran. And as we learn, this is the original appearance for all of the Matoran characters that we have known up to this point.
Hmm.
And we'll get into that more in a moment with the movie. But these are brand new characters. We've kind of sort of seen some of them
Hmm.
previously, Akmu being the biggest one. We
Yep.
see him regularly throughout the online games and animations. In the story this time, he's still kind of a nefarious actor. He still does things that are extremely sketchy. And all of these Matoran actually have some sort of a personal connection to the Toa, but not in the sense that, like, oh,
Hmm.
they share the same village or they share the same primary mask. No, all of these Matoran secretly are extremely envious or jealous or really don't like the main Toa character for
Oh,
this year.
Yep.
Tahuti
wow.
doesn't like Winua. Akmu doesn't like Anoa, but he also doesn't really like anyone. Visola, however, is obsessed over Nakama. All in all, the dynamics are completely different. Before, the Matoran really looked up to the Toa, they really depended on them. But now, it's kind of like if you know someone and they get a job somewhere and they become like really, really famous, and you look at them and you're like, oh, how could
Hmm.
you? How could you do this? It should be me. That's the dynamic with these characters.
Interesting. Very funny. Like I liked seeing like the cheaper sets, like the $4. Like you spend $24, you got an entire little army right there. And like I wish Lego would bring that back somehow. Like I know it's harder today, but like that must have been amazing as a kid. Like you could get $50 for your like all your family for your birthday or something, and you can buy so much with it for Bionicle.
Yes,
We got the ultimate Bionicle set. That thing, 702 pieces.
Wow.
$20. Yeah, no, these were
Definite.
really cool. They do these for a few years where they're literally just parts bins. They just have a whole bunch of specifically Bionicle pieces from most of the previous years. They just shove them in a box and are like, "Here you go." And they're just really cool. Later on, I think starting in 2004, they would include like special pieces.
Hmm.
So this is the first year we actually do get access, if I'm not mistaken, to the Knohi Vahi, the Mask of Time,
Yep.
which plays a large role in
Hmm.
this specific story. It is also, chronologically, the first mask designed by Lego for this theme.
Oh. Was this like, this might be a dumb question. Was this essentially like a set that was just all the extra pieces that they had that they didn't really know what to do with? Like they just made too many, they just want to kind of toss them in a bin and just kind of sell them, make a little profit? Or did they specifically make these without them being in any other sets, really?
No, these are all pieces, pre-existing pieces. There aren't
Hmm.
any new exclusive recolors or exclusive parts outside of like the very rare few, like a one mask or one disc or stuff like that.
Got it.
These are all they're just bulk pieces.
Yeah.
Can you
Which
imagine if
is
they did
nice that
that?
they did that because it
Yeah.
lets you be able to kind of build your own figures if you want, or build your own creatures without having to buy sets and kind of mutilate them for parts in the end.
Can we bring this
Um,
back? Like, I know we got Pat, but like this would just be like a way to kind of invest in creativity while also kind of being with like a specific theme. Like,
true.
obviously, where you don't got Bionicle, but like if you get one for Ninjago, you can build like your own temple or something, or maybe Star Wars, maybe not IP, but like if they were able to get a new theme back that's like their own Lego theme, maybe a JJ, not a word. If they were able to do like a Dreams one where you can kind of create your own heroes and villains alternatives, like you got the good and the bad, and you got both colors. JJ, stop smirking. But it's just a way to bring back the creativity that I feel like Lego's kind of losing, and I'm getting off on a tangent we'll save for another episode, but you see what I mean.
They did do that a little bit with Ninjago, I think around the core wave, where they had like a build your own temple set.
Hmm.
I equate this to being very similar to the crafting boxes from
Mhm.
Minecraft.
Okay.
I think that falls into a very similar vein where you have, like you were saying, a lot of theme specific parts and components that just kind of allow you to build your own thing. That's a lot how these were. I view the crafting boxes the exact same way. I think they're great ideas.
Hmm. All right,
So
moving on.
before we go to 2005,
Oh.
we do have to talk about the movie
Yes.
because the movie's great. I love the
Yes.
movie.
Mhm.
Yep. Nope. This is my favorite of the Bionicle films.
Hmm.
It's just such a good time. So, Bionicle Mask of Light releases direct to DVD. It's extremely well received by both fans and critics. I don't think it was massively critically reviewed because it was a direct to
Yeah, it
DVD or
wasn't
direct
something
to
like that.
VHS. Yeah, but did very well. Good stuff. So of course they're going to make another one. Same animation company, same directors and writers and so on. Bionicle 2: Legends of Metru Nui. It's where we get introduced to the Toa characters. This film comes out later on in the year in October.
Hmm.
So we see these original characters, the Turaga, we see them as Matoran. And this is where we find out that Matoran turn into Toa and Toa turn into Turaga. We now have that system in place. So we're introduced to all of them. These Toa don't like each other. They're not
No.
friends. They're not really wanting to
Hmm.
be a part of a team. They all kind of have their own lives. So it's very much they're doing their own thing. And then Lee Khan drops a Toa stone off as like, here, inspirational quote, and then just flies off.
Hmm.
So they all end up at the same place. They all become Toa, and they all realize, hey, we have to do something. There's a threat to this island. Now, something we haven't touched upon at all about 2004 is the Morbuzak threat. The first half of the story covers the Toa Metru. They've recently become Toa, and they have to fight against the Morbuzak, which is a sentient plant that has infected the island. That's actually what's kidnapping or making Matoran vanish.
Yep.
And
Oh.
so no one really knows what to do. No one knows how to deal with it. So the first goal for the Tometru is to collect 6 great Kanoka discs. They're insanely
Hmm.
powerful discs, and they're scattered across the island. And in the story, the only people that know where those discs are the Matoran, the 6 Matoran that don't already like their Toa.
Hmm.
So they get the discs, they defeat the Morbuzak. None of that's really covered in the movie when it comes to the Morbuzak and the Matoran. They just focus on Toametru, get discs, and their goal is to get those discs to bring them to the Colosseum, a large
Hmm.
structure where everyone gathers in the center of the island or the city, and present it to the Traga to be like, hey, we did this great thing. We got these discs. We are your heroes now. They
Hmm.
do that, and the Traga's like, interesting, but I think you're imposters. So, Vaki, cuff them. So the Toa are like, huh? What? They get split up. So you have Nokama, Vakama, and Matau in one team, and Nuju Wanua and Anawa get sent to prison.
Hmm.
While they're in prison, they meet a new Turaga. And the Turaga's like, I'm going to teach you some things about yourselves. And no one knows who he is. The other 3 are like, hey, we got to figure someone out. We got to go get them. We got to figure out why the Turaga Duma, turned
Hmm.
against us. So they're learning about themselves. The 3 in prison are learning about themselves. Eventually, they reconvene. They find out the Traga is actually Likon, the Toa that gave them all the Toa stones.
Hmm.
When they became Tometru, Likon became a Turaga. So the 6 of them, they've teamed up. They figure out, hey, something's amiss with Tragaduma. And around this time, Tragaduma is like, hey, Matoran, we've got this cool new weight loss plan for you. And it's uh, go in this sphere, this Matoran sphere, and just chill out. Don't worry about it. Vaki, make them do that. So Turaga rounds up all of the Matoran in the city, puts them in these spheres, and the Toa find out, oh snap, Tragaduma isn't actually Tragaduma. It is Makuta.
Mhm.
He is the Turaga in disguise. So they go to
Oh.
stop him. They're unlocking their mask powers the entire time. They manage barely to defeat Makuta. They trap him in what's called a Toa seal, something they can only achieve by combining their elemental powers united as one. So they trap him, and at the end of the movie, they take a few of the Matoran spheres and they take them to the island of Mata Nui. And at the end of the movie, we see that all the Matoran are on the beach, and the Toa Metru use their power to wake them up, and in the process, turn into Turaga.
Oh.
That movie was such a fun watch. Getting like obviously Mask of Light was great, but this one I like takes another step in my opinion. I think that this is probably the best movie that Bionicle ever gets is the second one.
Oh,
Um
yeah.
Vakama's arc is great. Um I love Maddow. I've always loved Maddow. I love that Maddow gets his own little bit in reviving Bionicle too, which makes me really happy. Um but yeah, that movie, animation style, still great. Maybe doesn't necessarily hold up as well today, but I don't really think it matters.
Yeah.
It kind of does, but it doesn't really matter in the end. Like basically, if you're gonna watch one of those Bionicle movies, don't expect like Lego movie level animation. You're not gonna get that.
Very different.
Very different,
For
but it's
sure.
fine. Like it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, like the whole like the lore aspect of Matoran become Toa, Toa become Turaga, huge, huge going forward for how kind of everything works out with a well, except for 2006. That kind of throws a wrench into things, but that's all right. Um,
Next
kind
episode.
of. Yeah, that's next time. But yeah, so we get the Matoran are up on the beach. The Toa are now Turaga, and now we go into 2005, which probably one of the this is probably one of the better years that we get in the theme, in my opinion, with the Hordika theme, with the Hordika years. Um, I love the Visorak. They're kind of like the main like threat of the season or of the year. And I don't know why. I just always loved the Visorak. I think they are probably my favorite, second to the Baraki in terms of like
Hmm.
just like enemy force you're fighting. Love the Visorak. The Ratuka spinner feature where you can like literally launch, like you can launch the spinner out of them is a really interesting projectile, almost kind of like Beyblade style. They had ripcords, did they not? Yeah,
Yeah.
like they look sweet. They're all clone sets, sure, but like I don't even care. I I remember seeing the um the Visorak and just loving them. I don't know why, I just loved them.
No, I completely understand that. The Visorak are cool for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the Rotuka launcher, that's the new launching function for 2005. They also have a
Mhm.
pincer
Hmm.
function where if you squeeze on the back and push down the carapace, the jaws in the front
Oh, cool.
ting together. Obviously, they have articulation as well. They're really cool spider type enemy. They also reintroduce primary and secondary colors. So
Yeah.
where most of the canister sets from 2004 are primary color and in gray, the Visorak bring back a bright, contrasting, or complementary secondary color that really brightens their color scheme. It makes them a lot more vibrant and visually interesting in an otherwise very desaturated palette.
Hmm.
So you guys said that
Agreed.
these were the villains
Yes.
Mhm.
of okay.
So, end of the movie, Legends of Metru Nui, movie ends, the Toa wake all the Matoran up, and JJ, you had mentioned earlier that Lee Khan's mask had more story significance, and that
Yes.
is because at the end of the film, Traga Vakama, oh, Lee Khan dies. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Lee Khan dies in the film. He bites it trying to save Vakama, and Vakama takes his mask, yoink. And so at the end of the movie, we find that one of the original Matoran, Jala, he woke up
Hmm.
out of his canister and broke his mask. And when a character breaks their mask, it's a big problem. They need that to survive. They need that to be okay. It's literally like if you just took like the skin from your face, went.
Wow.
They need that. So Vakama brings out Lee Khan's mask. puts it on Jala. So Jala is carrying on Lee Khan's legacy by wearing that mask. So
Yeah, that was like probably one of the best parts of that movie is when
yeah.
you
Oh,
see him get that mask and it like morphs a little bit. I'm like, oh, so cool.
yeah. I totally forgot. We didn't even mention 2004, the masks themselves, they've changed slightly. So the Matoran keep the designs of the Turaga masks. So they
Hmm.
still have that stud piece in the back that connects to that head, so you can easily knock them off. The Toa
Mm.
Metru, on the other hand, have followed the design trend of the Mask of Shadows and the Mask of Light from 2003. They attach the masks via axle, so you can no
Oh,
longer like battle and knock the mask off.
Yep.
Not with
cool.
those designs.
Which I that feature was always cool in the first couple of years, but I almost like now that the masks are just permanently affixed. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. The feature where you can knock them off in battle, awesome. And I like that. I mean, I think it was a cool idea. They brought it back in 2015 for G2. But when
Hmm.
it comes to these, I just, for me, just display wise, OCD wise, I just like them always mounted perfectly centered to their heads. Now,
I get that.
story significance of the Vizirac gets pretty cool, at least in my opinion. I will let LJ take that one because he's much more
Hmm.
versed.
So, end of the movie, we see the Toa, they become Traga, so on, but that isn't really how it worked out.
Hmm.
So, 2005 actually tells a story between the Toa taking 6 Matoran spheres up to the island of Mata Nui, between that moment and the actual end of the film. This is still a prequel.
Mm.
It takes place before the actual end of Legends of Metru Nui.
Okay.
So the Toa Metru, they can only bring 6 Matoran spheres with them. Obviously, they have thousands they have to actually go back and get. So they return, they go to the island of Mata Nui, they find it. They're like, "Oh, cool, we're setting up shop here." They go back to the City of Legends and find it ransacked.
Oh,
It has been completely destroyed. There are these webs everywhere. The city is in shambles. Everything is destroyed because during the events of Legends of Metru Nui, a large scale cataclysm occurred. It was a worldwide earthquake that
whoa.
just ravaged everything. We don't find out what that actually was for 4 more years. So everything is in shambles. The containment of thousands of Rahi creatures from the deep dark archives, that's been breached. They're all over the place. It's just a complete and total mess. And now there are all these spider webs everywhere. Well, as it turns out, while the Toa were away, 2 new characters came by leading an army of Vizirac,
Oh.
these creatures. And they basically just set up shop and took over the City of Legends. And this is their army for the year.
Hmm. So I guess we'll move on down to Kitongu and Sidorak.
Kitangu is awesome. I love him. He looks so cool.
So
So,
these are some of our new. We only get 3, technically 4 if you count the combo model. We really only get 3 Titan sets
Hmm.
this year. Kitongu. Have you guys ever heard of Keytorange?
Yes.
This
I've
is
heard-
where Keytorange originates from. This
Uh-huh.
set,
oh,
I don't know if it was the first set Lego made to use flame yellowish orange, but it is certainly the one that popularized it. And that's why you'll hear like even Jang Bricks, he'll say Keytorange because he was big into Bionicle and Hero Factory, and that is a common term for this color because of this set.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm just
That,
curious to
let's see
see.
where it popped up first. 2003.
Okay, so
Oh,
it's not starting with Kitanga, but
I'm
it's
sure it's where it's got.
definitely
Well, you
where.
know, what, let me just go with system instead of Duplo. So we got.
2004.
So it got its popularity from Bionicle, but it's been around for a while.
Yep.
Very cool.
So
I forgot about Key Torrent. I almost forgot about the name for that. Um, yeah, he's I just love how I love his weapon, his like his spinning it was like a spinning shield. I
Hmm.
forget what it was called, but I loved playing with that. Like you could it was like it flipped around and it could deflect blasts and it just looked sick. Um, he also has a Rotuka spinner like built into his chest, like Iron Man, which was kind of
Oh.
awesome. Like it fired off like a arc reactor, which made him like he had a let transfer rate where he opened up and the disc flew out. Always looked cool, and his head very much. I don't want to. It very much gives me like sound like Shockwave from Transformers vibes, like the one just big eye in the middle. Like he
Hmm.
always just looked sweet.
Yeah, no, Kitangu is really cool. And fun fact about Kitangu, he can talk, he can
Hmm.
do stuff. Kitangu is a Rahi.
Hmm.
Kitangu is a
Oh.
creature. So Kitangu is in a very unique space, and he's actually kind of he's somewhat of a MacGuffin in his own right. The main characters, the Tometru, are looking for him because at the beginning of the story year, they get captured by the Visorak swarm, wrapped up in cocoons, and bit by the Visorak. And the Visorak have a potent venom that mutates whatever they inflict with.
Hmm.
And that is a large part of the story for 2005. Kitongu can cure them, but he's going to
Hmm.
want something first.
Hmm. Sidorak,
So I
awesome
actually
looking character.
own Sidorak. I love like the sword feature, which can't do it. There you go. Like it's a massive weapon, honestly. And then he's got a spinner on his arm as well. Like he was just one of my favorites. Like so, in a sense, LJ, correct me if I'm wrong. He's a villain.
Yes, 100%.
My childhood is ruined. I loved this guy growing up just because there's so much I could do with him, and I thought he was like this awesome, cool guy. Now he's a villain.
Oh, he's not even a cool villain either. It's
Ah.
he is, I swing by might I don't want to exactly date the video, but if we can get you to watch Web of Shadows coming up pretty soon, uh
Hmm.
you will be very disappointed with his role.
Oh man. But like the set itself was really fun for me. Like I remember I used to always like take off as much as I can to like make him be like bare bone and like he's got to find his pieces, come back. I always thought it was interesting how like the headpiece looked very human-esque and like you could slide I guess a brain in if you wanted to, but this one didn't have that.
Yeah, that's actually the Toa Metru headpiece.
Mhm.
So it
Okay.
is designed to have like the eye, that's an eye socket, and you put the eyes in. It's an eye
Mm-hmm.
stalk, and it gives them their eye color, and it makes them look really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses the piece, but his eyes are on the side. They're the large
Yeah.
red translucent horns.
Oh, he's
Rudaka, I
ruined.
believe, is next.
He's
She's the
cool.
big
Yes.
deal.
Oh.
Yeah, Rudaka is a set that exists, and
Not one of your
Rudaka
favorites?
is very different from most other Bionicle sets in that she has a more human design,
Hmm.
should we
Hmm.
say. But the actual construction is very impressive. Like it's a well designed set. It's got that spinning claw feature on her left
Mm-hmm.
arm. She also has a Ratuka spinner on her right. Again, the actual design work, the build of it is very impressive. The design is, I'll generously say, controversial.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Shall we move on?
She's a sick villain though in the movie though. I'll give her that.
Yes.
She's a sick
Yeah.
villain in the movie.
Okay.
100%.
I'll have to see it
Um,
soon.
Sidorak is the leader of the Visorak swarm, but Rudaka is actually the leader of the Visorak swarm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow. So my character really does suck.
a
Yeah, yeah.
little bit,
Childhood
unfortunately.
ruined.
Sidorak
Wow.
is a punk.
He basically just gets bullied the entire time in that
I'm
whole
just
movie.
gonna erase this past like 5 minutes from my memory and like I'll just remember all the good times as a
Yeah,
kid.
really cool set though.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
a cool
yeah.
set.
Moving on.
Ah, Iruni
All
and
right.
Norik.
Yes, the Toa Haga.
Yep.
Mm.
So these two tie into some of the small sets for this year. The Rahaga, we'll get to them
Mhm.
in a moment, but two of the Rahaga were made into these canister figures. These are Toa Metru designs. They are the Toa Haga. You have Toa Iruni and you have Toa Norik. Toa Iruni was generally sold on his own. Norik kind of sort of was, but was more commonly found in a 2-pack with both of these figures. They're
Mhm.
Hmm.
special limited edition Toa, which you can see because of their metallic armor.
Oh
They have
yeah.
those really sick shields that are exclusive to these two sets. They have a handful of recolors, and Iruni has a new mask design, and Norik has a recolored mask from Tragaduma. So they're really cool. They're really elite looking characters. They make additions to the Toa Metru design. And despite there being a team of 6, LEGO only released the designs for 2. It wasn't until I think 2022 that there was a canon contest to design the other 4 characters and what they look like. And that was done and it was approved by the author of the novels, Greg Farshty, while he still worked for Lego. So the actual canon design of the rest of them exist, but these were the only 2 Lego produced as sets.
Hmm.
Yeah, these guys are. I love the special edition markings all over the
Yeah.
boxes. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
So
I see what you're doing there.
obviously this is the one I have. Like this was like the brain piece we were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Yes.
Very interesting. So you
That
just kind of
actually
slide that in. Yeah,
does
let me
it
make
light
let me
up at
jump
all?
out of big screen mode real quick.
I don't
Make it
know
easier
if
for you.
that's his brain
Uh, okay, yeah. No, that's the right one. Yep.
because there's two
So
different types of the brain stocks. There's one with the
really?
bit and there's one without the bit. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I always thought this one was cool, and it kind of for some reason reminded me of Thor. Maybe because of like the lightning of the set. I don't know.
could be.
But no, he was the smaller one I have. I lost the green spinner. Had a lot of fun with this one. For some reason, I don't have the design right. I have him a little shorter for whatever reason. Maybe
It
just
is
a
a
little slicker.
crying shame that these shields were only in these two because
Seriously?
I love how they look and the fact that the spinner is like built into the shield like seamlessly
Yes.
makes them even better.
And the fact that I can hold the other one in there as well, which
Yeah.
didn't work out for me because I lost it. But no, this one was really cool growing up just because like all the gold with the green mixed in with it. It was
Hmm.
just a really fun one to have.
Oh yeah. Norik and
So,
Rooney were really cool. They're certainly fan favorites.
Oh yeah. And now we get to the Hordika, the Toa Hordika, post getting morphed by the Visorak Venom. I love these things. I know some people kind of think they're ugly. I heard people
mhm.
complain about them before. I love them. I think they're awesome. I think the design work is interesting. I think they maintain the gear function in the one arm,
Hmm.
which also still makes them look like mutated at the same time. Like the arms are like asymmetrical, and usually I can't stand that when you do something like that. But in this
Hmm.
case, it just really works, and they look sweet.
This one looks got some really cool weapons here.
Yeah, the jackhammers are awesome.
Yeah, and they do function like that. You can actually
Hmm.
like make them do that. So these are the Toa Hordika. Hordika means something along the lines of half Toa, half beast, or it's like half Rahi.
Hmm.
So essentially, the big theme of this is that the Toa Metru were partially mutated and have now become the Toa Hordika.
Hmm.
And so they are constantly battling animalistic urges. They have been transformed, and so they are struggling with who they are, their normal hero selves, and these primal instincts because they are partially transformed in these creatures. And they all go through their individual story arcs, but primarily Vakama and Matau are the big focus of the year as far as
Hmm.
characterization. Vakama feels like a failure for
Hmm.
leading his friends into this trap. He feels like a failure for not being able to rescue all of the Matoran. And Matau is an insanely vain character up to this point. He cares a lot about the vanity of being a Toa, the appearance, the publicity, like, I'm a Toa hero. And now he's been mutated into this kind of grotesque, not really traditional Toa, and he's struggling with that immensely.
Wow.
It
Uh,
like story wise,
hmm.
like how like the fact that they give a lot, like they give those two main focus. Obviously, Vakama goes back and forth with those animalistic urges. Eventually, he takes on like he basically joins the Visorak swarm as like a general at one point, from what I remember at least,
Wow.
Yes.
from reading the comics and from watching the movie. Um, like they flesh out the characters. They're not just the good guys. Like they're struggling with this. There's a real inner conflict with them, which is again something you don't see as much from Lego original themes anymore. Is characters with depth. I think Bard and Ninjago they do it really well with that, but Bionicle again just shows where just how strong the theme was. They had great toys, but the story behind the
Hmm.
toys was just as strong, if not stronger in some cases. Um, moving on past these guys, there's a couple other ones past it. This is also the year that we start getting quote unquote minifigure scale Bionicle sets, which
Yes.
depending on who you either love them or you hate them.
So I think these are fascinating for a handful of reasons. This is a trend that Lego starts in 2005 and carries out through until 2007.
Hmm.
So these are system play sets, and there are a few interesting things happening here. As you can see on screen, you have these unique figures for the characters.
Yep.
There are no minifigures in any of the System Bionicle sets, technically speaking. This is the only year that Lego does these like little statuette things.
Yeah.
Fortunately, because these things I cannot stand them. They are so specific and they are so limited. They have no articulation. They hold battle staves, which aren't the weapons that the actual canister sets hold.
Hmm.
The molds themselves are interesting, but I just ugh. They also
There's
have
no
these Visorak.
posability to them at all.
What's up?
There's no posability to them like
Not a
whatsoever. Like they're
chance.
just stuck in
None at
place.
all. They are statues. And they are not in scale with like really anything. They just kind of do their own thing.
Hmm.
They are on a base plate of sorts, so you can like stick them on stuff, but they're extremely limited.
Hmm.
They feel very out of place. The actual playsets themselves are very interesting. Oh, they also have the Visorak, which are partially glow in the dark, and they
Yeah,
all
that was
have
kind of
unique
cool.
molds.
Hmm.
But the actual playsets are varied. This one's the Visorak Battle Ram, so the little Visorak head in the middle, it like moves forward and back like in a ram, and it has a catapult on the top. It's like it's being pulled forward by all these Visorak. It's kind of fun. You have the Tower of Toa, which is also kind of fun. It's more of a play set. That giant mask piece is a large molded piece,
Hmm.
Oh.
and this would be also a trend that these sets kind of carry with them. They'd have these large molded masks. Two of the four that Lego makes are in 2005. There's this one, and then there's a red one.
I
And
also
like this is okay. It's fun.
Yeah. I don't love these. I think the ones in 2007 and 2006 are way better. I do love that the giant molded mask here looks like Duma's mask, which is sweet. And we also get the gold Kirkan again because there it
Hmm.
is. Um, that's probably why this set's a bajillion dollars.
So
Um,
And then there's this red
kind of
one.
yeah.
Wow.
that's the this one was my favorite of 2005. Battle Metru Nui. This picture doesn't do it justice. It's a much wider set, so it
Hmm.
looks more like a wall and a gate. But it was the flagship like set of this wave. I think it is the Bionicle set with the most pieces by technicality.
Hmm.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I liked this one a lot. Uh, and then yeah, that's the large molded mask. So the reason Tower of Toa can be so expensive isn't just because of that gold mask. 2005 was the last year that Lego used that kind of darker muted gold, the one that Cameron you have on a
Oh,
Rooney.
okay.
That is like, yeah, that's kind of it's a dark, not necessarily like pearl gold, but it's a dark gold that they used from 2003 to 2005. Well, starting in 2006, that's when they switch over to pearl gold. And
Hmm.
during the production of this set, sometimes it would be with the dark gold, and then sometimes you would get a copy with the pearl gold. So the mask, the actual Makuta mask, it's extremely valuable if you can find it in pearl gold,
Mhm.
because that was, technically speaking, a production error. But if you find
Oh.
it in a standard Bionicle like darker gold, that's normal. That's not going to run for as exorbitant a price, because that pearl gold one, that's like $300 to $500.
I was
Hmm.
gonna say, we actually at the local store down the street from us in one of the neighboring towns, they have one of those like original, like the pearl, not like the pearl gold Mask of Shadows, and they have it listed for like $700.
Yeah, that's
Because
not surprising, but it is insane. I
yeah,
would
they
never.
found it like randomly in a bulk bin that they just bought from some guy, and it was like mixed in with a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, there's no way, like that's actually insane.
That happens a lot. It's
Hmm.
actually why a lot of people really try to get a hold of those bins, because
Yep.
you can find all sorts of wild
Oh
gems
yeah.
in there.
hmm Visorat Gate. This was a cool one. I always kind of liked how this one looked a little bit.
These have different
Um,
This
characters?
this is no all the same.
so
Okay.
And it comes with all the same ones. For the record, the flat dark gold Mask of Shadows, you can get that on Bricklink in the US for $16. Like, it's
mhm.
really not that bad.
No.
Um, this is one of my least favorite Bionicle sets right here. This
Mm.
Visorex Gate. When I reviewed it, I was very frustrated by it. I don't actually think it looks good in person. It's it's a facade. It also just looks really, to me, it felt lazy because it uses the burps
Yes.
Yeah.
extensively, the big ugly rock pieces, and it just, to me, this set dressing, it's doing all of the heavy lifting. I was not very fond of this one.
I remember a friend of mine when I was growing up had this, and we used to just mess around with it all the time. I think it's probably the
Mhm.
only reason I just have good memories of remember playing with it. But
That's fair.
like visually, yeah, not
Hmm.
really there like at all.
Yeah.
No, I mean I can see. I mean it's crazy to think like it only has like two of these, but like they cover a lot of ground, and like you can tell just by like the stickers here. They're just I can see what you mean. Where it's not as much play. I mean, there's play, but like it seems to be more of a play set than a build play set.
hmm
Yeah,
So now,
exactly.
now we get the Rahaga, who are pretty big with this year's story as well. Um, very famously using the Rakshi heads from '03, which I actually think look kind of cool. Like,
Hmm.
I know sometimes people criticize Bionicle for reusing parts, but I think the Rakshi heads work so well with the smaller scaled characters.
For sure.
Oh yeah. So the Rahaga are fascinating. So this is a team of six Toa called the Toa Haga, and they had a run-in with Rudaka, who has the power of mutation herself, and she mutated these six heroes into these small creatures. And since they look like Rakshi, tiny Rakshi, they were coined Rahaga,
hmm
Rakshi Haga.
Hmm.
So they do have a handful of recolors, namely the headpieces. We have the colored Ratuka in the back, and they're quaint. I think their articulation is restricted, and the orange in the middle is downplayed heavily in these photos, but it's very
Hmm.
bright on all of them.
hmm Yeah, it is.
And the only one it really works for is Norik. But yeah, they're fun, quaint. The sets, they help the Toa Hordika on their quest, and they are their own characters. And eventually they do get turned back. Not in this story, but way later, they get turned
Hmm.
back into Toa.
Okay, cool.
The
And
Haga are very interesting in the world, because we find out in 2005 the world expands again. You know Makuta, the Makuta we've been dealing with this entire time?
hmm.
Turns out Makuta is actually a species name.
Yep.
Makuta is a
Oh.
species, and there are a bunch of them. In fact, they have an organization known as the Brotherhood of Makuta.
Oh.
And we find out that the Toahaga were actually teams. There were a bunch of them that are teams of Toa that are hired specifically by members of the Brotherhood of Makuta to act as bodyguards.
Hmm.
This team was the team that guarded the Makuta we are familiar with. And
Pterodax himself.
they actually ended up betraying him when he stole the Mask of Light.
Oh.
So they're very, very interwoven in the story and very important characters.
Yeah, they're pretty big. And like you said, the movement on them is very restricted just because of the limbs they have. For like from that aspect, they're not the best.
Mm-hmm.
For me, their importance and their significance is more lore based, less
Sure.
than this is a fun toy. Like it's a cool toy, but it's not the best of them. But it's not. I mean, I would still rather have these over the eighth Matoran, but that's just me.
And I mean, they're only $4 too. Like you get all of them for 24 bucks.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's not bad.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so then we get Bionicle 3.
We end with a couple of
Yep, sorry.
medical accessories, but then that's it for 2005.
Yep.
Yep.
So then we get the third movie, which is based around this specific year, specifically around the Hordika and that whole end of the story leading up to where we leave off in 2003. I love this movie. This is personally my favorite Bionicle movie that they ever did. I love this one.
This, my feelings on this movie have softened
Mm.
greatly over the years, but it continues to be of the movie, like of all of them, it's my personal least favorite of them
Mm.
because it takes
Interesting.
a much darker tone with just everything. It's a lot more serious, it's a lot angstier, and it wasn't something I vibed with a whole lot.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't call it a bad movie by any stretch. It's certainly a really dramatic time. Like it's an enjoyable, entertaining experience.
Mhm.
2005 does so. There are two things to briefly mention. First, the collectible for this wave are Rotuka spinners, and the Rotuka spinners are not a super crazy cool collectible because they just take the Rotuka disc and they recolor them kind of. You can
Yep.
get, I think, like 12 different discs that are blended molds. So you can get them in silver and in a dark primary color and in silver and a light primary color. And they're just they don't really have a great deal of story significance in the sense that the colors don't mean anything.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So you're just getting recolored discs as parts, which is fine, but they are really only usable by the Rotuka launcher. So
It seems like they moved away from like the collectible aspect and focused more on the build, which pros and cons to both. Honestly, 'cause like you could get a cool build or you can get a cool collectible. I think as
yeah,
they've grown, they kind of wanted more of the build over the collectible.
yeah, and they do definitely wean off of collectibles from this point on. They are a lot less specific or identifiable compared to the masks moving forward. 2005 also has a single story year. So previous years, it's kind of split up. So in 2003, you have the Borak Kal in the first half, and you have the Roxy in the second half. 2004, you have the Toa Metru versus the Merbuzak in the second, more versus the Vaki.
Hmm.
2005, it's pretty strictly the Toa Hordika versus the Vizorak all throughout. The third movie follows them arriving to the City of Legends again, finding it in this horrible, destroyed state. They walk into a trap. They get turned into Torhadika.
Hmm.
They're trying to figure out what's going on. They meet the Rahaga. The Rahaga are like, hey, you've been mutated by Vizorak venom, and we might be able to help you if we find Kitongu. And Kitongu allegedly knows how to fix Vizorak venom. So we got
Hmm.
to find him. But here's the deal, we'll try and find him with you, but we also got a lot of work to do here. The city is a mess. So they go on this quest. They're struggling with themselves. They find Kitongu, who at that point was actually believed to be just a legend. So this is
Hmm.
like a monumental, like, oh snap, he's real. Santa is real. And Kitongu's like, yeah, you know what? I can fix this. I can turn you back into Toa. But here's what's going to happen. We're going to save the city first, and you have to do it looking like this. At the end of this, I'll change you back if you want me to, but you got to be okay with this too. You have to figure out who you are, and you have to choose to be a hero. Otherwise, I'm not going to
Hmm.
help you. So they go. to confront the big bads. By this point, they've had a falling out with Vakama. Vakama's like, you know what? Fine. I don't need you guys. I'm going to go do my own thing. Meets up with Sidorak and Rudaka, more specifically meets up with Rudaka. Rudaka is like, hey, we can make you a big deal here. Be one of our generals. Be our commander of the swarm under Sidorak. Vakama's like, sure. So he's swapped sides now. So the remaining 5 Toa and all 6 of the Rahaga, they go to the Colosseum, which is now being used as a headquarters for the Vizorak swarm, and they confront this massive army of Vizorak. Meanwhile, Matau has gone off on his own to confront Vakama specifically because he was particularly harsh and nasty toward Vakama for this entire ordeal. Matau's had a realization. He's like, hey, listen, I was wrong. What I did and what I said, it was wrong. You've got to lead us. You have to be the leader for this team. He brings Vakama back. Vakama kind of betrays Rudaka and Sidorak. Kitangu kills Sidorak. Sorry. It's embarrassing.
Let's just rip off his head real quick.
There we go.
There we go.
Story
That's accurate.
accurate. So they confront Rudaka. Vakama doubles back around, is like, nope, I'm their leader. I choose those who lead, or I lead those who choose to follow. There we go. And they defeat Rudaka, but in the process, because of a whole bunch of shenanigans and Rudaka having a fragment of the Toa seal, once the Toa hit that fragment with all 6 of their elements, they undo the Toa seal through a mystical Wi-Fi connection, evidently.
Yep, pretty much.
And the Makuta is set free. Makuta is free once again, and he like takes Rudaka and is like, hey, I got you, and rescues her from the good guys. And Kitangu's like, hey, all right, I'll change you back now. And Vakama's like, hey, if you would, that'd be great. You don't have to. If you choose not to, fair enough. We're good now.
Yeah.
But Kitangu is like, no, you're right. You probably should be changed back. You're kind of hideous. So Kitangu does, in fact, change the Toa back to Toa Metru. And at the end of the movie, they rescue all the rest of the Matoran. They load them up on these giant airships, and they evacuate almost entirely the city of Metru Nui to go to the island of Mata Nui. The only residents of Metru Nui at that point are Rahi beasts, straggling Vizorak, whichever ones didn't actually leave when Vakama ordered them to just beat it, just go away, because he was their commander still. And the Toahaga, Turagaduma, and Kitangu, who are trying to fix up the island for the city for when the rest of the characters eventually return, which now brings us to the end of the first movie, which is where all the characters are going back home. They are going to return to the city of Metru Nui. And that's the end of the third film.
Wow.
I think the one thing about this movie, and specifically the end of 2005, is that unlike 2003, where we end on the crazy reveal of there was another island, there was another Toa team, and it sets up this next leg of the story. There was no real setup with the end of this. It was just like, yep, this is the end of the Metru Nui, the Legends of Metru Nui. This is the end of the Toa Metru and the Toa. Like, they're done. They're now Turaga. We're at where we're at, and everything is kind of wrapped up. They very much could have just stopped there if they wanted to. They obviously did not. They kept on going. But unlike 2003, the end of this arc, this era, did not very much have a real setup of this is what's going to come next. There wasn't that nowadays like Marvel end credit scene of like, hey, here's a little tidbit for what's coming next. No, there really wasn't. But it doesn't take away from how great this era was. Like there are more reveals to come as we go on, but there wasn't one capping this year off, and it's really one of the only years that there isn't, like one of the only eras where there isn't a big here's a big realization that's going to lead into the next chapter we're going to talk about. I don't have a problem with that at all. I know some people might. I think maybe we live in an era now of we finished the movie and well, what's the end credit scene? What's coming next? Like, just enjoy the story. Just enjoy the story.
No, for sure.
2005 I find very interesting because yeah, you're right. They were kind of hedging their bets at the end of '04, where they're
Hmm.
like, we'll just kind of like give it a resolution just in case. We don't know
Hmm.
if we're going to do another one. And then Bionicle continues to do well, so they do another one and they kind of shoehorn it into the end of the second film. I think as far as this era is concerned, I love 2004. I'm such a
Hmm.
big fan of '04. I think that it was a really cool environment. I think it was neat to see these characters in their element. Like they are robotic characters in a city. And
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting and expanded the world some more. And we got to really learn more about the backstory for characters we'd been familiar with for years.
Hmm.
When it comes to 2005, this is one of my least favorite years.
Really?
Not, yeah, not necessarily because of anything it does wrong. I just was never a fan growing up when it was extremely dark, it was extremely serious, and the heroes that I was really fond of following, they went through so much struggle. In the years since, I've grown to understand more and appreciate a lot of what '05 actually does.
Hmm.
But when it comes to like the sets, they are cool designs. This is like this we are reaching the peak. If not, we have hit the peak of a lot of the clone set era.
Mm-hmm.
When it
Yes.
comes
I
to
can see that.
2005, we have the Toa Hordika, which all look the same as each other outside of color, mask, and weapon. We have the Visorak, which admittedly do look more different because they are using different pieces from each other.
Hmm.
There are greater differences with the Visorak, and also their Carapace piece looks a lot different from one another. I like the Visorak a lot, honestly. The Rahaga are all strictly recolor. The only actual difference between them is color and staff piece. And we only get 3 Titans, technically 4 if you count Voporok, which is the combiner model for this year.
Mm.
So to me, this is one of the less visually interesting waves for me personally. But the actual story itself, it does a lot. It expands the
Yeah.
world more. We get new novels, not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
novels in the sense that like they're like a novel, but we get new books. So we get 2 really influential books. We get the Dark Hunter Guide,
Mm.
which allows fans to create their own models, their own characters,
Oh.
and those end up being made into actual Dark Hunters and cataloged in this book. Okay, my
Hmm.
timeline is a little off. The contest ran in 2005. The
Mm.
book released in 2006.
Hmm.
Got it.
There is another book that did release in 2005, and that is the Rahi Beast Guide.
Mm.
And
Got
that
it.
was
Got it.
also one where fans could submit their creations to be included in the Bionicle story. So that's a significantly influential book. There are a bunch of books that were released in 2005 that expand the story of these characters. There's one at the very end that is extraordinarily influential. It's very popular. It's called Time Trap. And it's a book that the author basically had free reign on. So he really, really went all in with it. It's
Hmm.
this kind of alternative reality for a smidge.
Right.
Vakama has to go get the Mask of Time, which was lost at the end of the second film, and he has to briefly team up with Makuta, which is awkward.
That
And then
whole
he
thing was
also,
Mm.
wild.
yeah, it's a very, very cool book. So 2005 does a lot. The movie is still fun. It's the last movie for quite a few years. But for me, it just wasn't the atmosphere of it wasn't my favorite. It was a very oppressive atmosphere, which was the point. It is a
Hmm.
unique
Mm.
atmosphere. It just
Right.
wasn't my jam.
Yeah.
I think that's why I love 2005 so much was we get a much darker, much more grim story. These very heroic heroes are mutated into these like just monstrous creature looking things. And they go through a lot of personal struggle. And for me as
Mm-hmm.
a kid watching that movie and reading the comics and was like should I be watching this? Like this feels way darker than it should be for a kids thing for me. But that's why I think drew me to it was like it felt like I was watching a rated R movie, even though it wasn't a rated R movie. And
Wow.
also, the Hordika commercials are sick. They're so good. Despite the music, the song from the commercials is awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
The
Yes.
band,
Yeah.
the band itself, less so much,
Hmm.
but the song itself is awesome.
Oh,
Was was the band that did What It Takes to Be a Hero? They had some controversy with them, did they not?
It's hard to
not that
keep
I'm
track
familiar with.
anymore. I feel like
I so thought they did.
everyone's got some sort of
I
controversy
don't know why.
lately.
I thought they did. I thought I saw something about they were like some kind of crazy extremist group later on down the line. They turned into that. I might be
If
totally wrong.
if they are, my understanding is that they didn't really last too terribly long. So there are a handful of songs associated with 2005. There's What It Takes to Be a Hero,
Yeah,
Caught Up in a
that's a good one.
Dream,
Yeah.
and they were songs recorded by a band at the time understood to be All Insane Kids. And
Yes.
I am not familiar
I'm like
with a lot of their other discography because I'm pretty sure they only did these songs and then did other music as a different band.
they might have.
Because everything that I find online about them is the All Insane Kids band themselves only did the Bionicle songs,
Hmm.
and then eventually they would do more stuff under a different name. But I don't know anything about them, honestly.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know where I saw that. If I'm wrong, strike that from the record for me. But I just remember that I remember thought seeing something about they developed into something that Lego no longer wanted to associate with, so they very quickly left them behind and moved on to other stuff. But this was also one of the fierce years of them using like outside music groups, like actual bands, and putting songs like that in the commercials, which 2005 we get What It Takes to Be a Hero, which is great. And
Hmm.
then 2006 we get the straight up goaded Move Along commercial, which we'll get to next week. But
Oh,
yeah, like I don't know why. I don't know. There's the Vizirac as villains. I just loved them. I think the Hordika designs, I think I liked them more than the Metru because they had that asymmetric arm with the gear feature in it. I don't know. But '05 to me is one of my favorite eras. It's one of the first eras that I really sat down and read into. And that's what got me so into Bionicle that I went back to '01 and then followed up to where I was. But
Wow.
and I think it's also a crying shame that this is the last year we get a movie until Legend Reborn, and what was it 2009 or 10?
Wow.
2009.
Yeah, like that kind of stunk that we didn't get any movies at all for those other years.
At least your
Um,
childhood wasn't ruined.
check that your boy Sidorak over here is basically
I thought he was amazing growing up.
he's a
I
cool
didn't.
set.
It's a great set. That's not gone. Knowing that he was pretty much picked on and defeated so easily, it seems like I'm like, why?
I can't wait to
it's
watch that movie with you, dude. It's gonna be so good.
it was so easy. It was so ooh, I don't I want his I want to be there to see your reaction to that.
Well,
No, we have to.
no,
Yeah,
JJ will record it and we'll like post it in one of these episodes at
we'll
some
have
point.
Please.
we'll have to.
Oh, this is gonna be bad, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's gonna be funny.
it's gonna be funny.
Uh
Um,
no
I think. Go ahead, LJ. Sorry.
no, please continue.
I was gonna say I think that's a good spot for us to wrap up these 2 years. Obviously, there's only
Oh,
two. There's
thanks.
it's only 2 years, but there's a lot to it in terms of what went into this. Does anybody have any final thoughts they'd like to add on 2004 and 2005, the Metru Nui series?
He does not suck. No, like, great looking sets. I like the darker feel of it. I like seeing the earth tones, honestly, 'cause
Hmm.
like it makes it feel in a strange sense like it's more grown up per se. Like with the primary colors, like yeah, they're great sets, love them all. But like you definitely get that more childish feel, whereas like these feel more grown.
Hmm.
And I feel like we're gonna be broken records at this point, but like the price is just insane what these were. You get so much out of it compared to today's sets with what you're paying. Some sets you're paying 10 times, 15 times as much, and it's like you don't get any of that play value versus you get six characters for 24 bucks and you get so much play in the world. Like I want that back for Lego somehow. I don't know how they're gonna get it back when they're so focused on the adults welcome brand. But I hope they figure it out someday. and he doesn't
Yeah.
suck.
No, I agree. I think 2005 is a fascinating year. I obviously I still like it. It was just not one of my favorites, and it
Oh
still
yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
too much. But for me, it was a very interesting year because I'd been into Bionicle and like looking at it online since like late 2002, early 2003.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But 2005 is when I officially joined the Lego online community.
Oh.
I made an account on the Bionicle fan website BZ Power in
Hmm.
September 1st, 2005. And so it's really cool to see how much has changed since then. That's obviously this year. It's 20 years since
Yeah.
then. This film, the third film, turns 20. My involvement online in the community is 20. It's it's really exciting, and this will always be a very fascinating, unique year, and it's interesting to look back on it and kind of see what is so positive and what are the aspects that maybe for me at least don't work as much,
Hmm.
but it's definitely a fascinating year. It does a lot, it covers a lot of ground, and it's certainly unique that holds its own place in a lot of people's hearts. So it's a very fascinating couple of years for sure. And
Well
I sure
said.
do love 2004, really do.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think that's a good I think it's a great way to put it as well. I think my final thoughts also, I mean, 2005 was obviously the year that really got me into the theme. Maybe want to go back, catch up. Like what have I missed so far? I love the design, like the Visorak to me, bar the Baraki are my favorite villains in all of Bionicle's history. I just loved their
Wow.
designs. Um, and again, the darker nature of '05. I don't think we do kind of get as dark in other years. Um, Not as much, but I think that really solidified that as like you have my interest now. Like this is not just a
Hmm.
kids theme. Like this is doing things that other toy brands do not dare to do.
Hmm.
I think that's what made me respect and love it as much as I do to this day. Um, but thank you all for watching.
Yes.
If you have not already, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you're notified when all new episodes go live. Like we said at the beginning, this is part two of our retrospective look at Bionicle. Part one was last week. It was 2001, 2002, 2003 with LJ, of course. We will be back next week talking about the Ignition trilogy 2006, 2007, and 2008, which is my personal favorite era of Bionicle ever.
Hmm.
Speaking of your presence on the internet, LJ, where can everybody find you?
So I'm going to be most places. I am on YouTube as Eljay Johnson, Eljayjoho or Johnsen. I'm on a couple of social media sites. I'm on Blue Sky. I do have a Twitter account, though I don't use it quite as often. But the bulk of my catalog, as far as what I've made online, is over at the TTV channel. I've made a bunch of set reviews, mostly about Bionicle sets. So far, I have the only complete catalog of Bionicle set reviews. Hopefully, someone else will also be doing the same. But right now, that's the most complete one, and you can go check them out. Forgive me for the quality. I made them when I was very young, and they get better over time. But yeah, that's where most people can find me.
We will have LJ's channel
Awesome.
linked. We will have LJ's channel linked in the description below. But we look forward to next week talking about part three of Bionicle. We will see you all then. Have a great night. Happy building.
Sidorak does not suck.